resend it. Okay, I guess I'll just resend it. IKERBELAUSTUG, right?
Yep.
A Petros.
15.
Oh, 15.
Yeah, that's
Max. L, 2 L's at the end, right?
yeah.
And 1 B.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I should have just said. My Wi-Fi is like really slow.
I just got it doing my thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry about that.
Alright. Did you get it? Yeah. Alright. Well, I have yet to receive it. Did they type my email right?
Maybe I think I might have gone without the 15.
You forgot the 15.
Oops, sorry.
You should reply all on that, and you don't have to make any more.
Okay.
And take out the whoever A Petros is, because they don't want to see receive speech docs.
Yeah. Okay. I should have just said it.
Alright. You just look on your own. So.
Hooray! Okay.
Alright. Whenever you're ready.
Right. Oh, I need my timer. Sorry.
Did you detach it? You did detach it. Just make sure you have it attached.
Okay.
Okay.
Max, good?
Are you both good?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll figure it out. One of us has it.
Advancing towards the ocean flow, increased ocean development is inevitable. This will cause planetary conflicts that jeopardize offshore industrial activities. Marine spatial planning is necessary to create a global model for management and development projects. Here, Moss 14, the next one is French development, high sea proliferation of fishing, shipping, energy development, and ocean activity in the whole question of vast oceans. Our oceans are ocean regions trying to keep offshore leads to ocean swell, jeopardizing the jobs. Recreational oceans are still elected. Wildlife marine spatial planning deadlines areas involve activity to come decrease uniform planning and America's offshore waters prevent ocean swell. Setting example for other nations around the world. Now, scenario one is agriculture. Global fish stocks and fisheries are collapsing now. There's global food supply stock on 14 more than 85% of fisheries have collapsed. Use of industry worse than and marine fauna. There's emerging potential data to classify fish a critical source of humanity. It is facing infinite stock costs with increasing massive food supply. Industry requires unique investment. 60% of seafood still comes from wild fisheries. Not effective. Offshore aquaculture finds a resource efficient mechanism to cope with population growth. Solve global food shortages faster. 14 overload aquaculture emerging from 2 decades. We're headed toward the breakdown of food system linked to warming. Ever since variability, we're paying a high price for population growing and breakdowns in the U.S. There are substantial dietary options. Big studies don't going to adequately nourish the people on this planet. We're going to have to combat actively their mind. We're reducing by the bush and shit is one of the most resource efficient ways to produce protein from an environmental perspective. Now, food shortage will collapse global civilization because a laundry list of impacts. Ground man, big coal stability, this food crisis, food shortage, bring down our civilization, and food security, the entire nation will break down. And the main threat is the security is failing state for national governments and no one trying to food. There are social terrorists, jobs, refugees, and global stability everywhere. Global civilization doesn't network a healthy nation states. Many will be in trouble. Now, the greater fault on the stability of global civilization. Now, conflict for food will escalate to global nuclear wars. And period, FBI 12, conflict from World War II, final research, World War II, represents right with the need to gain access to food. The scale of the conflict should be significantly, and we're going to save not saying large regions, world short of food wholesale by the wars, and that will fall there for World War III accessory. Chain of resource conflict where food security conditions more like Brazil, conflict, dark world, air trade politics experience such we're all in a famine, and they trigger for nuclear war. Now, marine spatial planning is a prerequisite for successful implementation of offshore aquaculture. Federal action is necessary to prevent conflicts and regulatory uncertainty. Grounding Canada should be something cohesive to use offshore waters, market coastal ocean, be a busy crowd of things that require regulatory orders that does not exist. Solution, marine marine spatial planning, deep water aquaculture makes me seeking cities. They never realize that regulatory aquaculture uncertainty is found to be question of offshore aquaculture conflict with numbers. I know offshore aquaculture through marine spatial planning is the best way to accommodate both business and environmental objectives. Now, scenario 2 is energy. U.S. ocean energy development is inevitable and increasing now, but fails with the status quo regulatory uncertainty. Climate turning 13 American economy will become coastal areas contributing to estimates put that figure at 14.5 trillion oil and gas production coexist with fisheries plans by recreational activity clauses such as no offshore wind energy projects by decade rocky permitting activities about the development of continue unfold conflict will not be right. Many development community criticize regulatory process delivering these factors show investor and developer interest making process reactive. We can public understanding that the plan solves 2 ways. First, the environment. Marine spatial planning balances human activity with environmental well-being, increase dynamic resilient ecosystem protection strategies. LR9 society getting more benefits from the marine environment, natural diversity, better protected cumulative, environmental effects will be managed, and MSP to integrate marine ecosystems and surrounding these activities, and marine environment will coexist, and effects on the environment will be safe, economic management system, the ocean will be clean and healthy and out there, and there will be adaptation to diverse and dynamic ecosystem, will be resilient to change, spatial management will help, ecosystem recovery and produce damage management will be able to secure benefits of the whole society engaged. Now, second is certainty. The plan raises confidence and reduces the risk in ocean energy development. 13, sharing information and coordination. Ocean planning can help reduce redundant efforts and identify gaps and actual benefit of voicing so that we reach conflict among stakeholder centers and ready agencies. Very time consuming ocean planning to speed up the current impact of increasing speed and start to be more important reducing costs and locales where there could be energy responsible as well as possibly energy risk exacerbated by lack of detailed pre-existing information use holders may create unfit user settings without expectation being able to develop this create significant investment risk by ocean planning raises confidence. Now, fast growth promotes U.S. leadership and solves great power work causes out 11 economic transformation most severe long-term U.S. position both through the U.S. external from local control the economics of rapid power development community will lead to a shift from American premise to the multipolar system leading to war about the power lose the economic devastation of their greater friends of those countries who live with their enterprise U.S. rich nation international community closing the gap and intensifying geopolitical competition or high risk escalation American geopolitical that have devastating consequences that will be impossible with armies miscalculation other crises. Now, advantage to the environment. Warming is real and environment anthropogenic studies prove proven 13 planets more warming than recent flood this prove low warming evidence and the effects of greenhouse gas back essential ocean responsible for the recent slowdown of stock company use and actually should rise to Earth over the years heading to the laws of wind the recent slowdown doesn't achieve projection future warming dramatic to property having changed that we're still phase of blast so fast through the results of Heisenberg we're currently at 4 keeping on a rise to fast now 3 internal links first is private innovation dynamic anticipatory marine spatial planning to crowdsource solutions to climate change and predict future climate change events create called anticipatory dynamics can be created to combine harness revolution improve standing and also climate change impacts on our marine environment research different when it comes to real life energy centers as well as given out there ocean ecosystem marine spatial planning zone parapets single use without permanent non-primary research and using economic management with the overall purpose and basically the stewardship and shared effects of marine uses to make ocean zoning plans based on climate change and impact marine spatial planning space zoning need and no future use rights and climate change management zoning plan include official climate change zones their plan capacity plan both use increase investment private diversity discount research administrative planning and space climate change and use kind of engagement research that was one of the most basic climate change adaptation knowledge gap accumulation of research and improvement governance and climate change area now engaging the private sector is key scope and innovation technical 14 we need probably the private sector part to help the nation at that time get official climate negotiation had little bit to begin to focus as far as on government adaptation plan to the private sector mobile financial resource technical capabilities engage people to development and the private sector dominate application services weather obstacle technology early warnings and job residencies performance also inclusion strength funding wars radical support private sector private sector we take on a bigger financing will governments play a key role help quantify incentives for adaptation. Now second is adaptation flexibility and marine spatial planning is key to climate change adaptability solve the environment create policies securing measures climate change adaptation government measures to ensure human adaptation zoning to be an important marine government activity fishing and commercial fishing depending on how the optimal climate fishing wind pattern and location wind current wind and investment dimension for use for species shift shift location output also better. Now third is leadership marine spatial planning is key to successful national ocean policy implementation create 11 no regular future the ocean trend linked to international diplomacy we need to improve our understanding of the ocean understanding climate change environment and energy significant focus ocean policies that go around and important role this watercraft for development marine spatial planning build planning processes now that solves U.S. scientific leadership and consequently promotes international cooperation where we're working on treaties how we're looking at international law by the basis for responsible management specifically in a worldwide skills rescue report implementing a national ocean policy will provide the backdrop for U.S. involvement in international ocean policy and now matter to deliver U.S. policy make all exploration of ocean and multinational affairs introducing to amend the ocean policy only the first step. Now international ocean cooperation is key to coordinated management that solves warming adaptation mitigation and biodiversity current welcome and international ocean governance and they struggle to keep the development and national ocean governance require coordination harmonization relevant international instruments are essential to strive out the new government structure may be complete global runaway warming cause extinction current forest extinction warming cause change elimination weather resistance wildfires and pollution forming for the first thing I was for constantly carbon warming effects are making this progressively worse with the kind of feedback and more warming the Arctic cylinder less carbon methane will rapidly leading to extinction of species including humans earth will follow huge temporal action now independently marine biodiversity class extinction U.S. ecosystems are key to create 3 ocean ecosystems play a major role in 70 elements are basically lost other organisms degradation marine ecosystems is a impairs to support like biodiversity maintaining the function of marine ecosystem maintaining biodiversity marine ecosystem critical maintaining ecosystem service the U.S. is still protecting marine ecosystem in the U.S. Marine ecosystem may be unique in the world we kill the ocean we kill ourselves and we will take the biosphere with us now and healthy oceans are key to survival dancing to oceans generate much of the world occupy 95% of living future animals and plants deep fields we need healthy oceans to survive now thus the plan the United States federal government should implement marine spatially planned ocean development protection create solvency. Current marine spatial planning efforts are insufficient to increase federal commitment is key tolerant 30 region and no must be done to the number of obstacles uncertainty and including investment by expertise logistical hurdle negative logistical hurdle remaining way of every region need more data collected to reduce integrated collaboration across government agencies lack of financial staff and often kind of lack of funding and information concerning the recent timing of the federal body annually increased after funding estimates due to eliminating funding funding can be increasingly important factors such as off the core stream of funding from the federal questions blue now. Ocean development is inevitable, but it will fail since being implemented in an ad hoc and uncoordinated manner. Federal action on marine species planning is necessary to relieve regulatory uncertainty, accelerate regional planning, reduce planning conflicts, and time U.S. reallocate state and state and federal voters, but an ad hoc and coordinated all farm decision being strong input from the public to reduce conflict, broader overarching marine species planning, and minimize regulatory uncertainty, spatial planning legislation, and legitimate and fair opportunity to make their new zone species planning since the planning system U.S. has national plan to be implemented at the regional level.
Okay. So let's talk about planning, for instance. Do you have any evidence that indicates that aquaculture, people are interested in developing aquaculture now?
Yeah,
You just said
the
that.
draft evidence says that in the status quo, industries like aquaculture are looking to develop their industries, but they can't do so because there's a regulatory environment that doesn't.
What is the
provide
current
certainty.
regulatory environment?
Well, there is a very fragmented regulatory environment right now, so there's no coordinated management and zoning of the oceans, which sort of allots ocean space to different interests. So that's investors who are looking to develop the oceans are uncertain, and there's a chance that they get
who would build the aquaculture?
Whichever entities are doing so now, but they are seeking to do so now. The plan would facilitate that by allowing for ocean planning and zoning.
What is the NOP?
The National Ocean Policy was a framework Obama set up in 2012 that sort of just set up a bunch of goals.
If you set it up in 2012, why do we need
Or 2013, it was set up as a bunch of goals that the U.S. should follow for exploration and development.
Sure.
Congressmen have blocked any actual policy that would fulfill those goals.
Sure.
The plan would fulfill that framework, which would provide U.S. leadership.
Aren't there a multitude of different goals to the NOP besides just marine spatial planning?
The primary, they're like other minor issues, but the framework was created around marine spatial planning.
If you set out multiple different guidelines, then you're just fulfilling one of them.
No, okay, marine spatial planning was like basically what Obama talked about almost exclusively in the National Ocean Policy.
Okay, sure.
The evidence that international entities with
countries
leadership as.
Do you have any evidence that says other countries are not pursuing action on global warming now because the United States isn't planning its oceans properly?
The Jorge evidence says that countries want to be able to reduce warming, but A, they don't have a leader to look to, so the U.S. for example, and B, they need a marine spatial planning model. That
all this card says that implementing a national ocean policy would be a backdrop for the U.S. involvement in international ocean policy. It makes no claims about global warming.
Well, the card after that, the card and walk evidence.
No. We're talking about the card. We're talking about the card that's in the context of the NOP. Does anywhere in this card make any claims about other countries being interested in this particular policy when it comes to global warming?
No, the card says that it strengthens U.S. leadership in international institutions. But
No. It says U.S. involvement in international ocean policy. It doesn't say strengthen.
Quote, America's stewardship of the ocean is intrinsically linked to international diplomacy. Scroll a little bit more down. Quote, Obama made marine spatial planning a significant focus of his ocean policy executive order, and that...
Where are there claims about global warming in there?
The Curry and Walk evidence says that international ocean cooperation leads to solutions over warming.
The Curry and Walk evidence?
Yes.
Could you read that line?
The Curry and Walk, quote, international governance of the oceans is struggling to keep pace with development. Quote, coordination and harmonization of relevant international instruments is essential to ensure biodiversity and withstand climate change.
Okay, but you just jumped like 3 lines in there. It
Quote,
says to build
the green highlighting, quote, coordination and harmonization
green highlighting
is essential to
skips
ensure
like 5
biodiversity and withstand climate change.
4 off is in the order of spatial and
just stand right here. Here, I'll
Sorry, what was the order?
the 4 off then case in the order of advantage 1, which is spatial, and second advantage like 1.
So it's about warming.
Yeah.
All right.
And it says 4 off, right?
Yep. And anyone not writing
Cool.
First off, our negotiations will succeed at Lubell. PCs can provide options from derailing from top speed 14. While carrying zero for national galaxy last week, you can start meeting November 24 deadline when actor has been threatening to sabotage the entire process of Congress. Obama has been successful pushing back congressional derailment efforts. The White House has thwarted saying due to these sanctions have someone pursuing their measure against Iran. Obama is relying on the Senate to involve the intent. Iran, the U.S. can provide assurance that it will honor its commitment. Obama can last assemblage. The legislators like he did last winter when lawmakers tried to pass the sanction lobby by delegation for briefings in concert with public statements. Opportunity exists to resolve the nuclear dispute and federal ocean planning and NSP in particular is extremely controversial federalism issues and environmental concerns as gambling intent. Regulatory fragmentation comes when it comes to ocean issues. Big ocean regulatory from the U.S. Commission on Ocean Policy. Call for policy to coordinate the work when none of this happened up here. House and Senate bills established regulatory systems didn't even make it out of committee. Were widely criticized fundamentally following marine spatial planning. General different interests will debate whether there should be a national policy regulation or regional policy. And successful deals to prevent Iranian prolif and residual sex PC is uniquely key. That's Roslin says. There's no agreement. Iranians will rapidly ramp up their enrichment methods for train. Breakouts and produce mass weapons uranium. The U.S. would no longer prevent Iran from possessing nuclear weapons. Israeli temptation to launch a strike would grow because the international community might be forgiving the military action. One possibility would be an extension of negotiations in current programs that would keep Irani's program contained, preserving the status quo, and then the status quo is preferable to any uncertainty and danger of no real use its room as a comprehensive agreement, and if to strike causes great power war and turns the affects of the intent. Multilateral visual strike on the Iran's facilities would have dire consequences, including regional-wide collapse and a major collapse because Iran is well prepared and a single strike would not destroy those capabilities. Iran has a second strike capability can compromise of Iranian, Syrian, Lebanese, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Turkish forces. Israeli military forces may dwindle forcing it to use nuclear weapons, attack on facilities, unleash global terrorism. Russia and China might regard their Iranian protege Obama's responsibility to put the forces on nuclear alert. Strike to spark World War III. And second off, interpretation aids the possessed pronouns noting ownership of the U.S. District Courts and separate the word is possessed pronoun intended to refer to the party proceeding its use, and interpretation development is resource extraction. That's U.S. Code 14. Term development means those activities which take place in the following discovery windows are for the purpose of ultimately producing the minerals discovered, and the private sector will possess and maintain the development projects that violate the core meaning of it. That's the appellate court of Illinois 80. Each public utility shall maintain its system. Attention to be directed to the word it's being used, possessive form by the use of the word each public utility shall maintain the land which it owns. Voting issue 1 is limits regulatory changes and exponentially increasing number of plans, various any mechanism for each topic area. 2, ground the kill for negative strategy, trade-off, this has privatization, combat, agency, this has the case, and state action. Voter fairness and education. Third up. The coastal states that implement marine spatially planned ocean development. The states can coordinate over ocean planning policy. They've been doing it for 40 years at CSO 14. More than 40 years, the Coastal Zone Management Program has offered an effective mechanism for managers to address coastal debt and innovation partnership, as well as the establishment of coastal management programs in 34 states and territories. Programs that would reduce environmental impacts and coastal development, resolve significant conflicts between competing coastal use systems, and provide critical assistance to local governments in managing coastal planning and resource protection. And the plan alone fails and gets rolled back. Federal government does not have jurisdiction to plan within the CCMA. That's ORCM. And 11 out within the CCMA and double states programs to address federal activities in federal waters. State coastal zone management programs and ocean management plans. State coastal management programs manage the uses and unmanned resources of the state's coastal zone, including the state's green waters, energy development. The CCMA enforceable policies are applied to federal actions. The federal consistency provision requires federal action be consistent with the enforceable policy of the state's federal fairly improve the coastal zone management program. Federal consistency provides states an important tool to manage coastal use. Resource facility cooperation coordination with the federal agencies, marked our agencies on to fourth up. And with ocean management renders the world standing reserved to be controlled only new reflecting technological thought can rethink our relationship to the earth. The impact is extinction, endless development of life from the quarter 92 inventions to only make things worse. Partnership for perpetuated cycle of human activity, evolving ecological disaster would be evolved. Human intervention, always are trying to do things cannot be the solution after work. To think of some way out other than calculated at the time when he states are so very high necessity of actions call for radical causes to do nothing or passion or action maintaining control drives conceptual the item is how to go think things through the assumption that underlie the ecological scientific solution we ourselves self-managers or the others of this is danger. Not only result in nuclear disaster, environmental catastrophe, but also the loss of being. We can never have, know it all. We can never manage everything that results in our being. The world is more than resource to be destroyed or consumed. No planet, animal, or ecosystem life of its own has any intrinsic value. Forces timber, the rivers of our source to people have become resource, human resource to be personnel, to be managed, or population to be lower, population to be controlled. One will go and respond to retaliate this force in which we will project and responsibility take precedence over any being. And the alternative is to reject the affirmative regulation, technocratic approach to problem solving. They obviate the examination of this focus becomes cognitive like the machine. This outweighs extinction. That's Roger Wilson sick. The danger inherent in modern technology means that the prime danger is And the essence of technology conservation is not the answer, not radical conservation is saying that things that technological things. Oh, we have a nuclear disaster doesn't mean degenerate that has been obviated, or something more tragic. Humans lose their dignity. Humans are already becoming slaves to the skulls of the skulls of looking humans who as opposed as the masters of the other, yeah, make them slaves. And on to case versus plan. Expanding onshore agriculture increases food insecurity, net benefit land-based that's food and water watch intent. Development of aquaculture in the U.S. could worsen insecurity in developing countries by placing demand on fish population. Furthermore, ocean fishing farming in the U.S. shift around broadly leaving the U.S. with only ecological problems using wild fish. When feed farms depletes forage fish population, takes away valuable food source, and the people who need to join us for legislation that will open the U.S. waters to offshore aquaculture support to which fish species that do not require wild fish, and the expansionism of marine aquaculture undermines the ocean ecosystem and wild fisheries several ways that they learn 6. Opening our offshore aquaculture poses ecological risk. A serious ecological risk associated with farming fishing marine waters include escape of farm fish, the spread of various hazardous diseases, the chemical effluent discharges from schools, environment, human weapon, the use of wildlife wishes to deplete the low end of marine food while offshore aquaculture is still experimental phase, even potential risk circulating and risk disease spread collapses the industry that's whole 14. Any production there's a risk that the water carries pathogens, the viruses are also pathogen parasites harmful to wild population. Aquaculture is a means of introducing new pathogens to a region disease. Parasites can also spread in some industries having experienced crashes due to disease, and decline will be peaceful and solves all their often only a risk of chain ganging. That this is really the hedge stuff. And econ, that's McDonald and Parent 11. A policy for detachment could reap potential benefits dread down and result in an improvement. The occasionally strained relationship between Washington and Seoul gradual detachment undermine the credibility of the U.S. and the U.S. alliance commitment by incrementally shifting the birth of the regional multilateral institution. The United States cannot strengthen the credibility of its core commandments while accommodating the interest of China and not to warming. The impact of climate change is hyped at the IPD. 14 last week's report on climate change was in prime mostly due to the alarm Americans in action severe weather events are no more likely now than they were 50 or 100 years ago. The losses of life and property and mental health everything. There's been no change in the demand tornado activity, even though there's a lack of significant warming. The in the past decade and then the policy of global warming has since 2000. There's no evidence that disasters are getting worse because of climate change and solution offsets any U.S. action global warming is inevitable. That's COVID-19 year 12. The act doesn't solve for any of this. The efforts by the U.S. EPA to mitigate the end of percentage climate change with the should reconsider perceived effectiveness of the U.S. emission regulations. Solar observation over an additional 0.4 degrees Celsius warming over the U.S. The carbon real source in part change large scale amounts of circulation patterns with choice. How we think foreign nations, not to mention Mother Nature, completely offset emission reduction. Emissions from China will completely subsume 80% of reduction in U.S. gas emission. Nothing we could do here will make any difference domestically globally when it comes to the climate. And science diplomacy fails at 6 and 9. Where the political will to collaborate exists to join the scientific project can be useful of possession. That will science diplomacy will be recognized useful activity. It is closely defined to cover specific situations and an umbrella term. Loses much of its value terminology based on historically maximizing self-interest practices which in the research cover the exploiting the is likely to be counterproductive. The issues of going beyond this, including distorting the integrity of science and alternating potential partners in collaborative projects were also exposed.
Status of the counterfeit critique?
The status quo is always an option.
The tag to the Iran sanctions is said. It says
what, sorry?
The Iran sanctions is said.
Yeah.
Negotiations, what do those negotiations do to resolve Iran proliferation?
Sure, so they'll just kind of just like get Iran not to have the necessity to build a weapon.
So does it place increased economic sanctions on Iran? Do talks do that, or does it just
Just like
negotiate with
they're
Iran?
just negotiation talks.
The talks would lift sanctions in order in return for Iran giving increased access to its nuclear program, more transparency, and
Okay, talks. Okay, so the Hasibi evidence seems to indicate that Democrats are the ones who are mainly supporting the plan.
Sure.
Okay.
and some Republicans.
Yeah.
All right. So if Democrats are supporting the plan and the plan is a massive win for Democrats, why would the delay be triggered?
We would disagree that the plan is massive.
The plan, the Gramley evidence is talking about federalism issues and environmental concerns. Democrats are all about increasing regulation to make development more sustainable. If they're the ones who are pushing Iran sanctioning the status quo and the plan helps them, why is there a link?
We would, yeah, sure.
The plan doesn't help them. The plan is a
The
massive
plan
fight
is a
against
massive
us.
win for Democrats.
I mean,
It increases
you haven't
regulation.
presented any evidence that says that, so.
Your evidence
I don't
says
know
that
where
it
comes
increases
from.
regulations. Republican like okay.
What?
First of all, the Democrats only
Why?
control one house of Congress, and not even that for much longer.
I mean, but this is happening in the lame duck, correct? So Islam majority. That's right. Why would Israel strike? Yeah.
What is the critique criticizing?
It's criticism of ocean development and ocean management.
So it's managing that.
Sure.
Why would Israel strike? Why would Israel strike Iran if Iran gained nuclear weapon and Iran would surely retaliate on Israel?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Why would Israel decide to strike Iran if they know that Iran will retaliate with a nuclear weapon?
Because Israel has been like at Iran's throat for years.
I know. So if
they-
Iran became
if
more
they see that they have
powerful,
a
why
weapon.
would Israel decide to attack Iran?
If they see that Iran has a weapon, they're going to initiate a preemptive strike so that Iran doesn't strike first.
So that Iran doesn't strike first. Okay, so why would they not strike? If they know Iran is going to retaliate, why would they choose to launch a preemptive strike?
Again, the idea being that if they hit Iran first, Iran won't have the capability.
All right, so then why does that lead to extinction if Iran can't retaliate?
Because it
Because he draws in like other major players. That
Okay, Israel nukes Iran. Who retaliates with a nuclear weapon?
Syria, Lebanon.
Syria does not have a nuclear weapon.
Hezbollah, Iran, Hamas, Russia.
They do have nuclear weapons.
Perhaps
okay,
Turkey.
That's fine. Topicality. Why do we explode limits if this is like the only act that increases regulations? Like, can you name another act that increases regulations? Yeah, which other act can you name on this topic that increases regulations?
There's a bunch of like drilling apps that would just increase the
Okay, sorry, that's not
time for this.
Sorry,
the actual ownership. Like,
sorry, I want to take credit for this. You're taking credit for that. So, can you name me another affirmative that increases regulations?
Drilling.
The plan increases regulations for things like drilling, right? Because it makes development more regulated.
Where does
So,
the plan text do that?
marine spatial planning, right? Development's inevitable. Marine spatial planning increases regulations. Can you name a distinct act that does not increase regulation of the US EEZ that is part of this topic that would explode limits?
Drilling.
That's part of the EEZ.
That's 30. That's like,
There's still big.
Yeah, yeah.
I got it.
You can stop that.
644.
Right. Yeah.
Gross lost the next two.
Oh, you were on your wiki. These guys are really cool.
They are super cool.
I don't know. I saw that on your wiki.
Yeah, I thought they were really friendly. So I wanted to give them a little shout out.
You emailed it? Yes, emailed it.
Their apps not quite relevant to yours. So, order please.
Have we been speaking of here? Do you think we can?
You're welcome to use our stand.
Matthew, you can hear me from there, right?
Yeah, you can do whatever.
Okay, that's okay. Awesome. Right. Order is oceans called environment, topicality, counterplan.
sorry, can you repeat that?
That's fine. No, it's not. Keep asking me something. Good. Alright. Ocean sprawl, environment, topicality, counterplan. Yes, just.
You gotta give it one more time for me.
Yes, okay. It's ocean sprawl, environment, topicality, counterplan, critique, design.
Okay.
Okay.
It goes really fast.
Yeah. And
Okay.
sprawl is the like energy food shortage one.
Yes, yes, that's the sprawl. Pursuit.
Seeded shocks impact rising food prices and resources to be accelerated and stable state collect causes degeneration, global institution leads to nuclear war, intervening actors can't solve any network of failed states, it's FDI gravel, which means it's try or die, freaking from now. Aquaculture doesn't need for food security because it's just give fish to release, causes more efficient fish farming, less for more fish to hit the market, drive down prices, that's these stress revenues. Additionally, factors like global pollution make things scarcity down to only aquaculture flows permanent U.S. leadership into aquaculture, goods global enabler, 6 aquaculture here to say 1 million expanded new environments and population incomes are U.S. in the position because of global aquaculture really made these stages only they sponsor nuclear, maybe that group B. Next 2 terms, careful setting solves them are stress revenues indicates that spatial things to create environmentally safe aquaculture. The revenues is all descriptive of this category. Additionally, careful setting solves are often solved and Anderson 14 is this have runs in the simple instead of because of minimize stress. This is aquaculture must be set over allocation will increase environmental problems that neighbors will increase from the future aquaculture making energy bonus that maintenance is additionally solving environment compared to better. The hegemony is leadership always rapid economic ability to sustain U.S. competitors interest rate will requirements spending closer to central class population base approximately as well all the states of the cows and it's just there's no piece for the mind steps. It's just talking about Asia, but it doesn't talk about the Middle East or the EU, which are evidence because of the key scenarios where we're proxy wars of like additionally the evidence is going to be good warming climate doesn't mean magnitude or in terms of additionally the warming flow warming always in terms of rise positive cascades when the institution is like when the action has to but the worst one the nature of the station all like that's going to come around average warming the impact is not high. Our evidence is scientifically proven. We did ice core studies additionally consensus studies additionally Asian pollution doesn't also because the clean goes global the Jorge evidence indicates that we have leadership and overall the additionally we take carbon dioxide out of the air the Korean wild evidence indicates that we would preserve carbon sinks which are take carbon additionally science diplomacy doesn't solve the sentences talking about how science diplomacy fails to solve political problems additionally science diplomacy solves our working evidence in the economy and getting countries to latch onto U.S. initiatives via legal leadership not necessarily diplomacy not topic how the marine spatial plan is a prerequisite to U.S. ocean development which are not just possible for general guidance of federal agents and spatial plan from set marine federal legal approach which involve the marine spatial eventually to a systems of leadership for different activities and we need thanks for the plan words and the countries and the plan directly causes more development kids have more reason to bring companies for development and counter-interpretation ocean development is utilization of ocean resources space or energy institute navigation 98 words ocean development platform 3 aspects utilization ocean resources utilization ocean space utilization ocean energy it's belonging to or associated with Oxford energy 10 belonging to or associated with the thing that previously mentioned in standards or interpretations key to education managing the ocean space is a more relevant consideration their interpretations over recent simplicity only 10 countries being taking over simplicity questions the discussion has been had by 5 Olympics about where we travel everybody from senior rolling on the ocean not particular industrial uses the simply space the relevance of the occupation space itself and they would limit the federal governments and actually developing conditions facilitate like the foundation with federal resolution no ground laws we still need to predicting about ocean development and no avenues all else would be thanks to the interpretation interpretation directly done by the federal government allows the time to crossings because we don't kill limits there's no topical version of the act or project of the week to set their interpretation incentivizes staff to race to the fringe to find tiny things that can cause puts all those strategies and functional limits checking predictability cruising limit checks abuse of reasonability first computing interpretation causes waste of the model makes it possible to answer for every interpretation that negative reason the counterclaim 50 safe values of whether they still don't want to see this bad filter to some of the ways the least factor because it is the absolute doesn't need to be true not a logical opportunity cause the truth between the federal government the states are dependent on the choice getting maybe that even more to the lower possible get a vote to do permutation do both and there's no rollback fiat is durable additionally conditionalities and reasons to reject it to growth so much we can argue this wall allows us to contribute like the management game the politics this act that's a burden for argument and responsibility the federal government's key a couple of reasons versus fragmentation the government says we're only trying to system to coordinate objective atmosphere that specifically kick offshore renewables and aquaculture create 14 marine claims in the world environmental focus other region other privates are focused on the country's places that's probably we put some type of war or when in similar situated by these are exclusively federal governments and more emerging uses of the waters include renewable energy development aquaculture use economy of space national development issues in the ocean energy policy national security and defense of regional marine plans with Congress and Dr. Creation how was established basic hard regulatory practices level of value others and those who may regulate a lot of places that short and factor revenue had resolved conflicts in federal jurisdiction to 200 miles of states 1.3 and the trigger this year law 7 indicates that ocean development is going further up than 3 miles which means they can't solve the majority of the ocean's development it's Q10 the federal government has jurisdiction of the for the 3 mile mark to the super of the US needs these zones 200 miles when they coast under 3 so leadership only federal government and Boston's incredible signals of the country the US is willing to commit to environmental policy can incentivize other countries to latch on incentives only US regulation creating an umbrella frame for private companies involved in innovative adaptation technology always going to be uniform is key to healthy investment environment additionally the certainty advantage means that only the federal government can create effectively so to ensure regulatory certainty within the business industry is third it fifth is legal jurisdiction this is jurisdictional precedent for federal jurisdiction great we're taking what great the Axel's emergencies is working on 13 lessons from the city environment is not insufficient to explain on major relative representation degradation else the effect of the speech there use of rock community will be lost in the first prejudice of major demonstration zoonotic diseases causing sinking casting well 12 recent days of running and angonical life but we have to cause between generation that have been work for host members is not applied to other representation have no need for host decay no specifically no impact no home framework reaching with the applicant skills keep your analysis or becoming the next question primary education the murder or anything else and see all the need to use the voter extinction outweighs TMTO 11 sugar or we should also make it and we can also possibly people in lives not whether they ability to do something to their lives maybe like maybe their lives that was also the level of the organization no legs around the all those
was not answer what we should do, what we should not do, so I say, go with somebody will suffer suicide, we can see those living on the fact that all lives and games, not made out of follow my example, usually currently teaching about the environmental management, what ethical foreign politics maintain, like to live in is sustainable to kill it at all, although it's not making decisions for more sustainable, scientific, technical, but there's special responsibility in this regard because of the development of money, and its impact on natural environment, and how the environment and society can human affect sustainability is inherently ethical, representation of people more relevant based on solely economic calculation, anti-management results in mass extinction. Tool 95, the idea that nature itself regulation leads to an emulated century by hands of possible best policy nature's current practice taking living conditioning levels of accelerates viral deterioration once people create large gaps and focus to store capital by motivating because something comparable to the alternative that is character maintain to consumers maintain its only alternative mass and creation of living nature and justifying using costs and we can justify mass genocide in this remote day wouldn't change anything or possibly to influence something and be focused on the debate should be implementation. Anything else causes regressive outlet, anything else causes regressive culture makes it aimably unfair to be affirmative management, justifying or sometimes incentivizes private application, tech developments, with international cooperation over the government, self-development, transportation, innovation, democracy, checks, we learned our lesson from Iraq and Afghanistan, where everything needs no work. But
all can't solve for the case.
And the all can't solve for the case are you should prefer a specific term like study politics today. Won't pass European majority rule implementation of brothers Democrats so one of posts and state focus on other issues even the senators and accusations for LBGM 1160 European state focus on the key for immigration ages my call about Palestine like the hard to do like the new sector you see your carbon stop from having economic benefits so on you go to just when you're carbon so about marriage and the technical issues and carbon about the power they can take that and information comes and was it carbon disease and 30 killed and build a farming to about would be able to be doing immigration law relevant immigration farming congressional law carbon reduction the entire deal is true about 52 and congressional like no right return to possibly plan difference and problems that try to push partner in congressional difference and those of the legal evidence about these many ways to divide the GOP side of Prince of Martin Cardin, principle of the aim that funds landlords here 11 months and specific authorization when works open source and contingent of another nature makes any miscegenation of records zero into the significant zero to take a welcome congressional back in Canada political capital slow midterms AP 1160 also urges Republican funds to work within the like an organization of president they suffer less political capital even 7 start looking for the next president MSP is popular by president commission first good 13 the by president public which is second continuing by the commission first and sustainable rights of all president for Congress and trying to take a legislation notice you can find set preserved by person and you will super losing interest in the based on a social and law to do should have to permit these ensuring an adequate process and additionally recommend leadership is keep running future confident abilities Christopher for America's always in the indispensable part of the Middle East and about rights of Gerald Carter produce the Israeli peace treaty king peace angel and immigration and so by the same report the United States American law will partner the words in dollars and PC's bad for station Stokes 11 different workers and children of public utility manager pleasure for the lady charge of report rights of course with foreign policy 34% 50% of the public on the realms toughness 61% of this that they were planning about for president doing some opposed to the season represent the only yes or not the part of the Congress may be planning what to do around comes of our way about tourism capability.
Go back to the case.
Mark the card capability, go back to the case.
Permutation, we can embrace the absent form and reject all other guidance.
Permutation, embrace the absent form and reject all other guidance. Should I be thinking about this? Go back. No impact tram, 11 I read it is whenever engaged in crime terrorists calling the shots of real product with representing urban is relevant. Sorry, that was on the politics instead. You can mark that last part of the board.
Where was it, Mark?
4.
Alright, first let's talk about the aquaculture stuff. How do you prevent like the fish from escaping with disease?
Yeah, our evidence indicates that careful siting would be able to place aquaculture plants in a way that they escape it when you cause a major impact. Additionally, it allows for more innovations in aquaculture industry because the careful siting.
How do you feel this innovation?
We don't get innovation if we say that it would be an effective plant. Our argument is that cheap aquaculture, like the plant-based aquaculture, a lot cheaper and more cost efficient. It means that people can focus on keeping their fish within.
What the plan makes the aquaculture cheaper?
Because the plant is careful. The plant allows for the careful setting of aquaculture, because they don't have to pay for excess costs like escape of fish or spread disease or things like that.
So they put it somewhere else, but how does that make it more profitable?
Because you put it in a better position. There are
Why
other
weren't they putting it in good positions before?
Because spatial manipulation was being done by a few coastal states. It was being done in an ad hoc, uncoordinated manner.
So it was awkward and uncoordinated, but they still got permits. So why did they get permits for bad places?
The permits weren't being issued correctly.
But why were they being issued in the wrong place if they
Because
applied
management
first?
was ad hoc. They weren't using the correct support tools. Marine spatial planning is a unified mandate for coastal management.
Sure.
That allows
You haven't answered the question of why they applied. You haven't answered the question of why they applied for permits in suboptimal locations.
Well, it's because no, they didn't. Okay, you don't apply for permits in a suboptimal location. You apply for a permit and you get issued a space to do development.
All right, what
development issue a space was doing it in the incorrect.
That's great. I just need to ask another question. What important development occurs outside of the 3-mile area of the CZMA?
Yeah, our Sharon Moss evidence indicates that aquaculture and offshore wind and shipping and recreational fishing are all moving offshore, which means that only a mandate covers the.
Isn't it pretty darn deep past 3 miles?
Yes, which is why it's good for
like
fishing.
unfathomably deep. Like, how would you get down to 200 nautical miles deep?
I mean, that's where training operations are conducted. That's where agriculture is moving ahead.
Again, we're going to the seafloor. Aquaculture is on the seafloor. Do they? We can't even dive past
Our
200
stress,
nautical miles.
yeah, our stressor, our shear mass
Wait, hold on.
indicates that.
Aquaculture is not on the seafloor. Aquaculture
Yeah.
there are fish farms in the ocean, right? They have nothing to do with the seafloor.
They have to be grounded in, alright, whatever.
No.
Yeah, alright, let's talk about this field stuff. I'm just confused at, like, why would you not just run an aquaculture app or an offshore wind app? Like, why don't you just fiat, like, all these unfathomable things?
We don't fiat agriculture or offshore wind.
So you don't fiat that any of these things happen, you should plan for them, right?
No, our argument is that those
Maybe
things are all
people could
inevitable.
develop.
No,
Yeah.
our argument is that
told
all
them
those
not
things
to.
are inevitable in the status quo because there's a will to develop.
All these things are now, so.
Because people inevitably move
So what's the
offshore.
difference between the planning now and the planning status quo? I'm just really
What?
confused.
The current status quo planning is ad hoc and uncoordinated. It's done by coastal agencies and it's done by multiple different
It's
agencies.
just a question of uncoordination, right?
I mean, there are other questions. There's a question of centralization. There's a question of certainty. There are questions of regulations that have to be streamlined by the plan.
Alright, that's fine.
Do you counter define? Your only counter definitions are its is associated and development is use of space, correct?
Yeah, it's
Alright, I just, ask one question we're taking back. Reasons to reject team, just condo and fiat.
condo. If you say fiat framework.
Framework, reasons to reject the K or the team? How does that make sense? Why?
Vague need
What?
vague need to be nuls.
Big alts? You could just say that. The CAP evidence you read that says ocean planning solves local conflict, every plan passes, that's just like winner's win, right?
I didn't you didn't read that part, too.
Back up just a second.
350. $350 left, yeah. Yes.
Oh, is this it?
Yeah. Oh, right. Topicality, counterplan, ocean planning, ocean sprawl, warming.
T, counterplan, ocean sprawl, warming.
Okay.
Sorry, I think you might have my counterplan. Top county counterplan.
I think you attached the wrong here. Trying to see.
Did I do that again?
Yeah.
Is it the acceleration someone?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
That's like your time.
This way you run it in. Okay.
Yeah, that's me. Hold on. This is wobbly. Sorry, I sent my last Wednesday, which happened last round.
I thought we were going to talk about politics and politics.
Oh, sorry, I sent it over to you. One more time. Third time's the charm. Okay. Topicality, counterplan, warming, or ocean sprawl warming. Does everybody have?
Yeah.
Let me just get it up.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
If you don't mind, I'm going to close.
Where'd you go to campus?
Michigan here. I'm home. How about you?
I went to Northwest.
Oh, okay, cool. I've heard good things.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, is everybody ready now? Topicality. The rules about the Jews' determination rates the best standard for making this best way to evaluate topicality because it was gold teams on all playing field, evaluating standards and the board judgment intervention, fairness, outweighs education, to be stayed, rigorous education, inevitable, will be bounds of evidence, the way, but unfocused education isn't productive, it's just two teams shouting all this at each other, makes that comparison impossible, kills flash forms, and never investigating these steps, the first to be the key to engage, good argument, and being able to make it productive advocacy out of the ground, our enterprise, the best combination of breadth and depth, with breadth of cases will prove very best, the key to many factors, community debate, folks, community, see small schools, not a question of who quits, but who can join about it's uniquely true, against small schools, you never get the funding and coaching, the EKT is key to breaking the cycle, makes more magical coordinates, they can learn games, just an independent, reasonable, next that community, debaters don't change unless they start losing holding line on stops. The incentive comes out with what? For more abuse, has to believe as much off as a case that is possible now. At best, they're effectually topical. That's what becomes question solved today. Gets by God of every link. These ways you are reading a different topics. The advocate makes being negative possible doesn't increase the I can't call you a murderer just because you want a gun and T. Is the question of if you got an actual plan allowing effects team means essentially no topic at all. Now we'll concede that ocean development is the use of ocean spaces, but it's a question of whether it's possessive. So who is doing the usage of ocean spaces? The federal government or the people that the federal government is allowed to use ocean spaces? Now the government has the USFG reduced. I revised regulation to incentivize private development. That's negative action. Increases divided makes something greater, larger revenue. The 14 increase. It's people greater, larger sense about the makes regulation. So a smaller number has to reverse the direction of all our siblings. Cinematics moves to the same counterbalance based on positive view extraction. Despite of everything, except the impact of kills flash. Means we learn nothing about the mechanics of federal ocean months for the days. Expect to be debating the other side. It has no answer. That's the independent reason to vote negative federal process. The key to relate to education of the assets. The USFG also increased federal incentives for development. This is not ownership establishments. We have two killer definitions. One is the U.S. District Court, and one that provides the general judicial use for it. The appellate court definition that affects the USFG must own the actual developments like the aquaculture in order and therefore maintain and prefer evidence as the intent to find legally appellate court decisions are cited by lawmakers, judges across the country still allows a multitude of acts. They can access all exploration at the terminal to their overlimiting clips in one development app, and development is also totally possible. As always, the USCG FG itself is doing the building. This includes a ton of morass, AUVs, OJT, style, bioprospecting, algae farms, arctic exploration. They are core because they provide a very perspective, diverse advantage around multiple mechanisms to provide the best topic education out there. Intertrust applies horribly. Abuse of mass at 3 pounds of Lake Ontario fishing. Quote Obama politely request that BP build an oil rig and take the topic list and multiply by 40 incentives and blow the topic. That's at more than 86. They have Senator broadly planned trade, agriculture tax, all these something sold catching another fiscal measure more than Trumpers over 27 governments to lure investors. And imagine having to cut case eggs that are compared the competitors, the loan guarantees, opposed to cost conditions, opposed to tax credits, as opposed to leasing for OTF, top version of the gas cells, all of their they're actually no top version, they're actually dumb. It also destroys negative ground, the core negative strategies like trade-off distance, where privatization counterplans, ATCDAs, they're key to benefits because they check back for small and new ask private public versus private ownership is the nexus debate of 20th century economics. Science that made allows to actual core controversy make ocean development around the day say it equals around with this interpretation is absolutely absurd. There's no party line for how related to the plan the USFG has to be justified. It's crazy plans should be how the fishermen build a boat called the USFG, and that would be related to the USFG. I'm a member of the government. If I took a swim, that would be increasing exploration. It's literally everywhere. This becomes functionally no topic at all. Now they said it's a prerequisite, but lots of things could be a prerequisite. Again, just because I might need a permit to go fishing doesn't mean the federal government owns the fish. Doesn't mean the federal government owns the boat. Doesn't mean the federal government knows anything about the development itself. It's just a prerequisite. They could actually not just have the prerequisite of actually have the development as opposed to relying on the effectually topical action of development by just kind of assuming that maybe people want to develop. They see feasibility, but just like feasibility is not an argument where you don't let the development of the linear are totally arbitrary when it doesn't have to be mixed with an invention for regular behavior to reduce cheaters, everyone in what they claim that actually they've been reasonable. They link to the originaries, linked to above. They've been reasonable. Their intro was cited by U.S. law with intent to define and not the Japanese Institute of Navigation in the Merriam-Webster Dictionary counterplan. We're not going for a state department talks competition now. First of all, 50 states beyond one. We are not even anything in the 50 states. You could have just read the counterplan text. It's only the coastal states. If you don't know, we don't look at this argument and there's precedents, legal precedents proves that there's a lot of the counterplan is uniquely counterplan and also protecting the argument, not the team, not going for a conditionality. But there's no contradiction, we don't cross the line, everything, no punishment, the strategy bad. They could have consented defense of the ground as logical. Real policymakers always they direct bad choices, proving counterplan bad. Doesn't prove the absolute logical feedback to all this. It's key to determining ground fair, key to negative flexibility. That's good. Education place for this key to show me the debate. Not from the middle behaviors rule. Key to stimulate attacks from the left and right. They're also with two attacking contradictions from several the hard to be shafted for a time will change something hard to make better critical thinking clash stable to not checks. We only send one solves argument responsibility and inevitable all arguments are conditional multiple distance cases make a world that never know if it's reciprocal. They get multiple parts kicking edge in terms of worst case. Ocean's problem. One, increased use of prey fish for aquaculture feed, undercuts marine food web, and undercuts food security, developing countries food and web ocean and ocean framing. Fish are pellets, get hit, wild fish, water fish, fish meal, and you can afford to say that the aquaculture, all you consume is that different dollars, fish, or the fish, all the pellets, are the technology for the main public country line, on the feeder, ultimately overconsumption of all the big their fish, are going to determine rather than small prey fish, by the people, putting help the people developing shore and the development of the aquaculture, the US may supply more company will be likely to be provided. Now, their only answer to this is to say that is they just have the status quo, but one, they have absolutely no explanation of why these status quo people applying for permits in bad locations sufficient. It doesn't answer the actual thesis of the argument, which is that increased use of prey fish for aquaculture, it completely disrupts the movement. But remember, you're literally putting these fish into the open ecosystem and just kind of assuming that they're going to act properly. But lots of different factors interact with them now. Exports of prey fish for aquaculture increases food insecurity, developing countries food, water, Washington, in 10 exporting food because the local population suffer from producing by fish. We're using the local population trying to use more to get this export model takes fishing field, or to people develop country creating malnutrition barriers for fish or plentiful aquaculture. Essentially takes them from poor to feed the rich. Now they say that we don't give to the elites, but that's a ridiculous argument. One, who do you think would own the massive aquaculture development and where? Why would they have any incentive to literally give food to the poor on top of the day? Otherwise, that the U.S. is modeled globally, but the terms that the U.S. aquaculture were modeled globally, that would be net worse for the world because it would increase food insecurity, also increase the market price of prey fish, would exacerbate food insecurity, food and water rationing, give the more prey fish to people's lives, problematic for you compensate for the global aquaculture and community demand as it up and out of the reach of people, what a critical part of the data using aquaculture only exacerbated the decline of available fish and low income colonies and escapes will undermine the ecosystems and wild fish stocks, how and all important processes that are ocean things like that can be with naturally occurring or proven to have something used to develop that estimated the G-Pole was as seems to be fish escapes from rolling the aquaculture span such direct on fisheries daily and six but nonetheless like they occur the offshore history of all those geological escapes even without so speaking they occur escapes of the farm fish can live in the genetic evolution of wild fish farm and if the aquaculture is also modeled globally even if supposedly the MSP has something to do with changing the siting locations, it would not change the siting locations in other countries, which would mean these same problems, especially with countries that don't have as developed maritime security programs, would have all of these escapee problems, which would mean a much larger impact on food insecurity, especially countries where food insecurity is already a problem, and they do not effectively end the disease. These are large-scale expansion of agricultural cause spread of diseases and parasites. And they look in six that evidence from D1 as he was excellent on this question, and also that the disease would collapse the industry because these diseases would spread among the fish and the prey fish that they introduced to society. So that would collapse the aquaculture industry, make it networks, and also make the food security networks. They say the plans called the large-scale operations will dominate offshore. They have not been evaluated for environmental benefits. That's clinker and negligible offshore officers, as well as many of the environmental coastal reducing the risk of escaping to reach the density because of fish. High cost of building and offshore currently famous production of high favor partnership that's for large scale operations, sweet operations, and how many value the impacts of marine system one and creates fuel system of use production now. Econ advantage offshore on the econ scenario, offshore aquaculture will not create jobs and jobs that created are not safe food water function London in our current economy from Leonard Porter the offshore fish farms unlike the competitor in 2009 the ocean farms are operating wide in front of more people further months in their future of the non over humor how does one loss against quarter with water and electric various family farms safe working and finding any loss will give a much greater loss over the driver skill than the high who farms in 2011 proves that there is no way to access the fast growth scenario and also extend the McDonald evidence and excellent the question that decline will be peaceful. The empirics prove that US even in the times of decline is not going to just start lashing out and attacking other countries they don't isolate any specific areas that the US are going to decline. Warming advantage, the scientific leadership advantage is completely ridiculous. That's already proved to the cost that there's no instance of there's no particular instance that they're looking to the maritime spatial planning program as to why other countries need to cooperate with global warming and also turns on this are actually global warming that the Asian pivot also is the Asian will never be able to compensate for Asian emissions was completely dropped by the 186 we're never going to be able to solve for that either. Science didn't this fail fix it. Process.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Harry.
Started. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, topic. We have a bunch of you make the cases that's like super ridiculous. It's like offshore drilling rigs. How does the athletes do these things?
I didn't say offshore drilling rigs.
You said Obama played with the press VP to do offshore drilling. How does the athlete do something?
Okay. When you say when the entirety of yours has to be related to the government, then the government could just offer like any sort of incentive for other people to do literally whatever. You could change the fishing quota and say that would result in more fish.
Okay, why isn't the affirmative federal government involved?
Because the development itself is not owned by the government. Now this is exactly the sort of fishing quota argument we're making. You could say, you could add 3 pounds to quota and say that's more
not. We say that marine spatial planning is a federal government policy issued by the National Ocean.
It's
a solvency deficit to the states handling the state. The federal government is key. The plan text is the United States federal government is key.
It's a federal government policy. It's not federal government ocean development.
Okay, so
it is other people's ocean development that the federal government has made possible.
So it's the mandate of the plan that's not topical. So it's like
the mandate of the plan is not topical, which is the question of topicality debate.
Okay. How does the affirmative?
Otherwise, you're affected.
Yeah. How does the affirmative create create these all of these apps?
So when the only requirement for development is that change in regulations results in development, you could literally do anything and that would incentivize private development. So this could be anything like adding a couple pounds to the fishing quota and say that means we fish more, or saying BP should build some oil rigs here and that's increased in USFG ocean development. There's absolutely no stable ground on like counterplanning out of the federal government.
Agriculture flow. You relate to cards like agriculture doesn't increase jobs. Our internally to fast growth is predicated off of ocean developing and ocean energy. Why is this responsive?
Because the ocean development that you result in is aquaculture.
Where do we make that?
Do you isolate a different type of ocean development?
Yeah, we don't say agriculture is key to growth.
Okay, but what type of development?
Warming advantage. Why is science diplomacy?
You haven't given me a different development.
But, I mean,
the only development you've isolated the one you see is aquaculture, and I said that doesn't make
ocean energy. We talk about recreational fishing.
Slow down.
Next question. Okay. We talk about like a bunch of other things like energy, recreational fishing, environment flow. Why does science diplomacy fail?
First of all, we don't have an internal link to U.S. warming cooperation with the maritime spatial planning.
Okay. Yes, we do.
B. No, we had this debate already. B. Science diplomacy inherently just doesn't make any sense with regards to one. If all of our aquaculture terms are true, then it wouldn't look like we were being spatially. We wouldn't look like we were planning particularly well.
Okay. Let's talk about the statements and evidence. What's the warning for the card?
It just says that science diplomacy is not, we've already proven if the United States has had various other types of science diplomacy, like through NASA, that it would not lead to any particular change in global warming.
Okay, when's
K, does that... Alright, let me know when you'll have it.
Okay. We'll take a second for that. Okay. 45 left. 3:45. Start with the edge.
Yeah, T, K, does that...
Right.
not ready.
I ain't know that. TK is that? TK is that?
Ready?
Top Cali always condition on because debate should happen on the further place down to the critique. See firm to build justice competition. We're not going for only offense on this framework. AKA they call system including here. They never ask. Cross section we would have explained. I'm either hacking the in the end research is just reason reject the argument on the team onto the desert. This had always been the case first time frame strikes happen for the fast will take years to occur such as warming biody losses and biody losses of who's here see which means we would have unique this magnitude nuclear war outweighs any impact probability. Israel now would happen at each other's stores furious and empirics to environment get to weapon Israel strikes and then the great power war happens in a matter of months as roughly and only successful nuclear can prevent Iranian prolif and Israel backlash that's Ross and great power war only makes warming biody loss which is seriously better because it collapses the economy and can't actually get the money or actually focus the time on that chemicals and nuclear weapons flying everywhere only kills biody and makes warming worse on the impact rate. Iran deal relaxation of sanctions keep global proliferation and stability leading to global nuclear conflict 7 to 13. That's 7 to 13. Trust acquisition of bomb models set off a nuclear bombs. The non-proliferation treaty would be shattered. Regional conflict will draw. Israel into the launching of preemptive nuclear strike. It should be possible to construct a deal and accident possible restraint and the return of relaxation sanctions. We're to make a judgment that is better for striking off the actual capacity and Iran proliferation causes global nuclear war to 8/11/11. Nuclear Iran can trigger proliferation in the Middle East. Algeria, Egypt, Saudi Arabia have initiated nuclear program. Saudi government might accelerate exporting ties to Pakistan decision to seek nuclear weapons would be highly destabilizing. And as it turns out, based on the Cold War interaction among the nuclear powers would be more prone to miscalculation, calculation, and proximity nuclear war powers might launch the warming level of commanders hiding escalation without early warning leadership. No retaliate against the wrong party, triggering the nuclear war out to uniqueness debate. First, Iran deal was close to finishing with local capitals. He to get the GOP on board to friend new sanctions cause Iranian prolif Middle East nuclear war as Volkers in 1028. Nuclear war and a nuclear deal with Iran is almost completely just with one. Just one hitch Congress Republicans are preparing for another political crisis. President cannot lift to suspend sanctions on case by case basis legislation. Action will be necessary. In the end, it's going to come down to strength on both sides. You have someone who wants to drop bombs in Iran and produce a decision to go nuclear. We have made enough progress in the last 6 months and have had in the last 20 years we have made more progress in the last 6 months than we have in the last 20 years. Major objective is to stop Iranians from being able to stop to get a nuclear weapon in the midterm. Something to do with it, but we need to look beyond that. And sanctions deal is coming now. Obama's key that's campaign in 1028. Obama administration preparing to go around an Iran nuclear deal with the top both sides contain the victory. Piece of deal we're in place and all with the new wrap it up. We have President broken progress on issues. Both sides claim victory and Obama clearly wants a deal and has instructed the negotiators to get a deal and Institute of the Obama's already acted. UMF is not unique. Iran sanctions on top of the evidence only says he would seek authorization in a few weeks. Not that he's pushing it right now. They say Obama doesn't have political capital because of the midterms, but this is ridiculous. A couple of recent data are others take into account the den. We're going to lose the elections, it's not just like they forgot our evidence says Obama will pass the Iran deals in the lame duck session. Did that work on unique and seen internal link debate? B our evidence post states which gives a better snapshot on the snapshot on the election scenario and on the link debate. Offshore aquaculture legislation is controversial. It's Leonard Farrell in 2010. Previous attempts to pass federal legislation were strong both by the Fishing and Conservation Committee because the legislation passed the necessary protection for ocean ecosystem. Helps the World Research Institution attempting to navigate the current regulatory process, hoping to install the first regulation for commercial fish farming in federal waters and precautionary national framework is urgently needed to advance the industry of development and political long-term climate leadership that's shown in 2012, making the global leader in clean energy technology will require a predictable long-term energy clean policy which will ensure innovators and venture capitalists that their efforts will pay off new performance standards. Emissions remove power and these standards would give reinforced trends low carbon emission sources to give business the greater certainty about future investments. So on the impact of making isolate that impacts will happen first, especially which is really key on the time frame part, which will win us the entire debate. Also, you have to take into account that there's a double bind. Either they prove that either they do implement the aquaculture, and when they do implement the aquaculture development, they have a clear link to this, or they don't, and they're still just not topical, which means we would win very easily on that. And also. Sanctions cost prologue, that's column 13. Prospects for an agreement have never been high. The opportunity to constrain the nuclearization of species leading to a peaceful without resolution.
There was definitely more time. Yeah, keep reading, it's fine.
The opportunity concerning the nuclearization can be seized into feasible resolution, or the savior Iranian nuclear bomb in another way in the Middle East, and the achieving peaceful solution will require a continued commitment given the justice. This just can be carefully taken to maintain the diplomatic momentum. Congress should refrain from imposing sanctions that will tie the hands and undermine the prospects for success and Iranian proliferation cause nuclear war. I read that.
Like when I was in security.
I always feel insecure because when you start to think about the fact that how much time it's going to take for a country to have deplete as much resources and actually go to war because that is very unlikely. Iran-Israel war is much
We both had the same time, so what happened there?
Oh, I guess it was positive time.
Okay, so can we all agree those last 30 seconds? Like,
If you all do not care, I will keep these on my phone.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
okay, sounds good. Press
644, yes.
starting now.
Free time. We have 2 speech docs, so I have to compile them.
Yes, please.
Just actually I'll compile them.
What's the order in the meantime?
Yeah, it's gonna be the sprawl advance. advantage? Or not the sprawl, the other, the warming advantage? The sprawl advantage. Practicality. And then do you second that?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Sorry, can we take a second?
Yeah, go for it.
Right, stop that. 305 left. Yeah, sending it. Sorry.
It's sent.
Yeah, I just sent it. You just sent it over.
Yeah, I'll compile it and then I'll send it out.
Alright.
Send it out together.
Oh, sorry.
Wait, this one's all compiled.
Sorry?
The one that was just sent is all compiled.
No, I'm adding one more card in the correct spot.
Alright, sweet.
So it's just like forming.
Now we went over everyone else's. I don't know if everyone else's.
Do you have all the evidence? It's just like 1 second.
Seven.
It should be sent. Still called aquaculture policy.
This is everything.
Yeah. I think one of the cards is just like a card from the PhD. Okay. And I'm referencing it. Are you good?
Yeah.
Alright. Conceded biodiversity impact, we should give us 100% risk outweighs their around prolifics and their probability of no comparative impact defense, which means they can easily but there's also always a probability because we have no control over the environment now. The line we suffer scientific leadership, the Jorge evidences that we specifically need to implement MSP to give the NLP credibility, which is what countries are looking for these acts. So this means we solve Asian emissions because we stimulate international cooperation against countries like China to model the Craig and also even if we don't mitigate all the carbon, the Craig evidence also so we still solve energy because we allow for adaptation. The Craig evidence says that MSP allows for dynamic adaptation, which means that even if warming can't be stopped, we're still able to adapt, which means there's no terminal impact to these sprawls and then they'll move their agriculture towards framing argument. They can't go for they can do the agriculture zones in naval industry, naval lose offshore increased development because of competing space on land. That's the sheer amount that it's only a risk that the plants all better. It's also not a question of where people apply for permits. People apply for permits, but they're given a location by the government. It's done in a bad location. Also, they don't consider the real evidence, which is that none of their evidence assumes the new regulations that were put in place last year by new agriculture regulation policies, which means there's only risk that we solve better now. Other food sources will become increasingly constrained. Seafood constraints to keep global proteins by K. Powell 11. It's a question of thinking about future international competition for food production impending. Restaurant industry, many parts of the seafoods like to play more important role. Global production supply in the future, internationalism of fisheries is key. Economic solutions for food producers and ecological environmental reason why we're in national consumption with production. Now also prioritize actually don't read that part now. Now they plan for effective exports. Our emphasis the U.S. offshore holds 70% of global agriculture, which means that we'll be able to satisfy both domestic and foreign demand. Now the disease from we know the agriculture causes disease because of new regulations that are going why is it not limitation? The topicality or framing or extend or counter interpretation of ocean development is the utilization of ocean resources, spaces, or energy. This is comparatively best for a few reasons. First, that MSP is a prerequisite to ocean development because it sets the framework for physical development. After MSP, all the topical case studies you list will be ineffective due to oceans, but also the reason why our education is all uniquely key for this topic. Also, they exclude all energy aspects. The way energy is going to be status quo is via U.S. contracting to private interest. Now, energy is the most important. It is important to this topic because it allows for things like giving toward climate change and China policy, which allow for increased class and also in the world of food and energy shortages. That's uniquely key now. Education outweighs fairness. No external impact of fairness. Education is the only portable skill we can carry around. People could not because it is unfair, but because they view it as educational. This means that even if we increase limits a little bit, you still vote affirmative because the educational benefits not massively outweigh. Now, we don't even increase, we don't kill limits. Cross 6 is binding on us. We asked if there any other regulation act. He kept on saying drilling, but drilling regulations is part of the MSP framework because it makes more effective. Also, he said that it increases 40-fold. No, in the context of the topic, U.S. ocean exploration development tax credits can only be given to energy companies, which means that we don't necessarily explode limits that was associated. It's associated to there's a better development because the U.S. does not own major things that they do in the ocean, like energy or regulations, which means that within the context of our topic, we are limited, and also germane to the topic, their case list. We allow for their case list, and also new energy acts and regulation acts, which sells comparatively better. Their burden to prove that we massively explode limits. Now, it also defaults precision. Genetic specifically divides the ocean into 3 distinct areas: space, resources, energy, gas. Because it's a clear bright line between topical and non-topical which is the most predictable. Now, to the
extended Greenland limits says that ocean space is more relevant.
I accepted that. Grounding evidence is that so now on to this framework, they consider the Christopher evidence, which says that U.S. hegemony solves for Middle East conflict because it acts as the ultimate deterrent, which means that we're accessing better inroads to their affirmative. Now the prolif turn no hope for a long time frame. The cultural there's no evidence ultimately decision developed with 10 years to device low probability of to actually develop a move, have capability move to British uranium would have to rise the characteristics that A would detect such activity in sufficient time. Now it won't pass because the White House loses protection while the Britain 9 actually President control sounds and now since the first time safety, the White House and all of the whole last Congress published time. Members of both parties criticized the administration. The White House less likely to lose protection. McConnell said that it makes the majority leader post-Obama administration face very large risk of congressional action. Now also the link turn is completely conceded that the flex is popular because it makes Republican interest more affected by regulation. It also increases environmental protection, which is why we in the literature. Also PC is really low because Obama lost the midterms. Those something on the hegemony flow. Hegemony is good because it incentivizes cooperation because there's no longer competition among different countries, which is why we after the dissent attack.
We are 3:45.
45.
Sure. case dissent in the order of oceans, planning, warming, environment.
Oceans, warming, and run?
Ocean, space, warming, politics. I'm sorry. Sprawl, warming, dissent. Ready? Too many concessions on the aquaculture means you can go right on the case law itself. They say aquaculture is inevitable today. First of all, the only argument that this was not in the debate at all until the 1A, the only argument in the 1AC is that ocean development is inevitable, and if they've already ocean development, obviously the status quo of aquaculture proves that the aquaculture is not would not be developed because it is not efficient for the companies to do so. So it's not going to happen without the plan. You can cross the line of key answers that says the marine spatial planning is a prerequisite to ocean development, which means the aquaculture development would not happen again. They have no evidence saying that aquaculture development, ocean development and engineering, ocean development generically is inevitable, and that was new in the 1A. Now they said it's competing space on land, but how do you have aquaculture on land? That just makes no sense. Now they do not answer any. They do not effectively answer what they completely drop the escape terms. The whole in 14 evidence says that the fish would escape and the fish would independently kill all the other fish, which made food insecurity net worse. As the 806 evidence 100% dropped. And they also dropped the devastating argument on proton that was highlighted in the 2ANC, which is that if the U.S. models aquaculture globally, even if they solve for bad sighting in the United States, they don't solve for bad sighting and lack of technological know-how in other countries, which means that it exacerbates food insecurity in all these other countries. It's impossible. It means those food wars in countries that are already prone to conflict are going to be escalating much faster. Going to extend their 2AC analysis and why food insecurity outweighs everything else because it can happen almost instantly once all the fish are eating each other. Disease starts all mishandled because they only say it's bad sighting. One, that does not solve for international. Remember the U.S. They claim that the U.S. would model it internationally. They do not. And also the disease would spread and collapse the fishing industry because when you put all these fish in these closed water space, disease is much more likely to spread. And also the drop the prey fish terms that prey fishing that increase the exports increase the price of prey fish, which makes it also impossible for other countries to develop it sustainably, which would increase food shortage again. They also do not answer here. They would only go to the elites because who would have the resources to build the aquaculture means that it would also exacerbate food inequality because they could raise prices arbitrarily, tell them whoever the heck they wanted. Also the food and water insecurity. The food and water report is 10 evidence is excellent how it undercuts the food web because you're introducing foreign species into the food which destroys marine biodiversity, which is an independent reason why we turn back to their biodiversity scenario on the one we pull all these terms. The reason why we also did not answer that the decline in U.S. Germany would be peaceful argument on the bottom of the flow, which is inertia, and fairness 12 evidence, which is excellent. The question of why we already proved that empirics showed even though the U.S. is slightly on the decline, now they have no reason to lash out and attack other countries. And one way that the Edgemont exercises power is when they broker deals with Iran, which I'll get to on the politics law within warming advantage. We've already turned the biodiversity advantage because the diseases and prey fish would all with the collapse of marine biodiversity. They say MSP and NLP credibility with that is ridiculous. The NLP credibility arguments are sure there's no evidence that China is looking at our ocean planning and go, okay, well they know where to put their aquaculture now. Of course we'll cut our emissions by 30%. Makes absolutely no sense on the leadership level. They also do not. They say themselves for the emission model. One, how does MSP lead to adaptations into the food insecurity proves that it would make it more difficult. With the food insecurity in terms of making it more difficult to adapt to disadvantage. Disadvantage in terms of the case one, they completed all of the impact of working the magnitude is nuclear. The magnitude is nuclear more than the probability. They say the only thing that says that Iran proliferation would not lead to war. But again, it's the question of Israel striking. If we do not prefer to deal with Iran, then Israel will strike. Now they said that Germany could decline, but Israel is our ally, and they've proven to be an unreliable one at that because they were willing to act in their own self-interest and they feel they've already struck Syria, which means that the probability is exceedingly high. It would happen much more quickly because they are vandals on the great now. The link evidence, their cab evidence is horrible. The question of the claiming power, the fact is not saying the card just as the current development requires a lot of lawsuits from political quagmires, not the plan itself. Our evidence post-state is great on this question. Only the evidence rate is very low. Very low on explanation. Now the Grambling evidence is excellent. It says federal ocean planning in particular. It cites the marine spatial planning program, but why is it extremely unpopular? Because there are federalism concerns. Because states, they say that the GOP hates encroachments on federalism because they don't want the federal government to encroach on open planning. That's exactly what the CCMA is that we read in all these states counterplan flows because the states already have the proof because they understand the that even coming out of the session, he's going to be able to one that they can work with. So now is his chance to do something. The Iranian appeals both Republicans and Democrats on some sides of the aisle. They need to be able to show that the extent that their evidence says that it is inevitable to pass deals is not true. There's a risk of political fight. Political capital is key now. Instead, our evidence works in 1028 deals exposed the mission of political capital is key. Excellently warned by running one of the wire. Go one hand, the one hour. He did such a great job of setting it. He had literally a minute left with nothing to say. Thank you.
227.
How much back in sir?
We have 230 left. Sorry, I grab some water. Okay. Alright, so the order is going to be the environment flow, the ocean sprawl flow, right, ready? Yep. The to a North sounds convincing, but he has conceded that hegemony solves all Middle East conflict, which means that we are accessing the Israel strike scenario. This was a framing issue at the top of the one, or a dropped argument is a true argument. The Christopher Evans says that in Paris, we've been able to deter all conflicts in the region, like Israeli withdrawal from the Sinai and Camp David Accords. U.S. leadership acts as the ultimate deterrent and incentivizes cooperation among other countries. Means we access the terminal impact to step down, and we only need to win a small risk of defense. Additionally, there are a couple of arguments. Biodiversity is the only scenario for extinction because it causes cascading waves of extinction that circulate around the world and causes massive species loss and die-off that spills out. We're the only global impact. Their best impact is just a proxy war. Food wars don't escalate globally because we're going to solve the food wars impact because they've conceded a lot of arguments. Additionally, probability will frame the risk calculus because it's going to focus on most real-term events and sheer magnitude and time frame focus ensures that we don't do anything. It's just policy stagnation. Additionally, the internal chain is so long that they can't solve anything in the first place. Now, the environment flow, she just spent a little bit of time making fun of everything, but he got here with 10 seconds left. Our internal link is way better than this. The Jorge evidence indicates that U.S. implementation of national, the Craig evidence says that U.S. implementation of the spatial plan would help Obama gain credibility for his national ocean policy. The Jorge evidence says that increasing the implementation of a national ocean policy would gain U.S. credibility in global institutions, would allow the U.S. to advance a global agenda for environmental conservation. The Curry Wilk evidence says that the U.S. is key to spur environmental cooperation. Additionally, only global environmental cooperation can create the proper preservation of carbon sinks which are necessary to solve global warming. It's the only way to create massive adaptation strategies. They've also considered the two other internally, the private sector innovation internally. The Miller evidence says that the U.S. can incentivize. They said the U.S. plan incentivizes the private sector to build better adaptation mitigation technology, which means we solve emissions. Additionally, we don't. Additionally, China does not need to latch onto ocean planning. It obviously would because U.S. China's part of international institutions, but it doesn't need to cut emissions because they plan preserve carbon sinks like mangroves and swamps, which literally take carbon dioxide out of the air. That was the Curry Wilk evidence. Now the oceans well, they have massive tomato kids. Teachers made fun of oceans well and but the sheer moss evidence goes way further than any other evidence. It indicates like specific projects that are going to be developed in other like agriculture and offshore wind and all these things that are never going to be offshore. Yes, they will go offshore. Yes, they happen. Yes, they happen without a plan because there's obviously demand to go offshore. When we do agriculture, we say something that is growing in the water. Yes, there is some agriculture being done on land right now, but there's competition for space and people view water as being more efficient, which means that they are going to go offshore inevitable. It means there's only a risk that the plan solves things. All these impacts are inevitable. There's only a risk that careful sighting solves, and he has mixed the vote on this argument. Yes, they know they can't raise prices unfairly because the U.S. because they wouldn't be able to because the U.S. controls the export. Because the U.S. would be able to control exports at all. Because the U.S. control they can't raise prices unfairly because the plan would go global and other countries would do it. So they'd be able to counterbalance U.S. and create sustainable food for themselves, which solves the food security concern. The escape term doesn't make any sense because they've considered that siting solves escapes. We can put the we can put agriculture, we can put it in different locations where there is a less likely of an impact of fishing escaping, even if they do escape, since they're in a better location right now, and it's better for them to escape. Additionally, I will clarify this right now. The siting process works because other countries other users ask to be placed in a specific location by the federal government, and the federal government puts them in a specific location. Our argument is that right now the federal government is doing it wrong. The plan is the only way to make it better. Additionally, the U.S. The U.S. model makes agriculture go globally, but the Naylor evidence indicates that U.S. leadership is key when it has these specific mandates. So the global model only happens when the U.S. says when the U.S. has the proper regulations and the proper enforcement for it to go globally, which means that if we have good regulation, it goes globally. But if we don't have good regulation, then it won't go globally because countries won't see it as a sustainable business, which means there's no link at best, or we solve the link to the churn. Additionally, food security doesn't way. You have to actually explain why citing obviously solves because it's not done intentionally. Additionally, there's no. It's not a question. It's not a question of U.S. intervention. It's not a U.S. obligation. It's not a question of U.S. obligation. The House evidence indicates that great power wars with proxy wars over hegemony. Now the disabled property international institution will be able to solve the impact. Now U.S. hegemony, they already see that U.S. hegemony solves the impact because it solves those things. Yeah. Iran sanctions won't pass. Republicans take conciliatory negotiations with means they're going to torpedo the road. Let's see the future evidence. They want to take a hardline stance at Iran, which negotiations won't allow. They've also conceded the 1 year Wong evidence, which says that congressional hawks and the right are going to break down negotiations. They've conceded that Obama has no political capital because he looks weak after the devastating midterms loss. That's the AP evidence, which means you can significantly lower the threshold. We need to win won't pass because Obama's push is completely ineffective. Their communities can become false if Obama can't push, which means there's zero risk that the Iran will pass. And additionally, all Greenland's evidence post-8 years. There's from 1023, but the future evidence is from 11-6, and it talks about how GOP majority will influence sanctions regardless because they're going to become the majority. Additionally, Iran perceives the GOP's increasing power. Additionally, you should prefer dates on this question because it comes after the midterm. So as soon as the Republicans take over the House, which means that there's obviously incentive for Republicans to not want to pass the bill because they know that they will just be able to hold off for a while until they get to the until they get past the amendment section. They were able to take over the House and they were able to influence the agenda by themselves. Additionally, the nature of the CAP evidence is really good. The plan is popular. The plan is popular. Our evidence indicates that it balances interests of both sides, and also to inclusive regulatory surgery, which causes political problems right now. They've just said that the CP evidence is bad, but it indicates that that's what ocean planning causes conflict. The plan is to get it solved.
What's up? Oh yeah, of course. Just feel free to email me if I forget.
Let me see.
Haichu?
What is the 1AC / I think of 1AC evidence that makes the claim for carbon 6?
Oh. The Corona evidence?
What did you say that?
CARANA. It's the sentence that this can result in wildfires, self-reinforcing cycle, decreasing carbon 6. I can just show it to you.
I got it. All right.
Did you save this stuff?
4.
McDonald is the only
Hedge card? Yes.
hedge card that you're
Excuse me. Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty awesome. That's it. Wow. Yeah, right. The elite. We're getting into the question of round robin teams now.
What?
Round robin teams now.
There's only 3 round robin teams there.
Yeah, that's right.
Damn. Appleton's fine. Young team is doing well. Who's that?
Whitney.
Got a third one there.
Hmm.
PR.
That's Jerry and Aaron. We had lunch with them.
Oh. Oh, sweet. They picked up this one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they did it really canting.
Yeah, UC Lab is hella gay. Oh, and unfortunately it won't have against them if we get UC Lab. I just don't know what he can like weigh against them. Back to the case standard. England is like doing it for rifles. The only thing that matters is biotech. And they definitely do not dissolve biotech.
Oh, Groves is 2.
2-3? That's not our Groves though. It's Groves OR. Just type in Groves OR and you'll find it a lot quicker. Oh, it's there. Past it, go back. Mm-hmm. Zero though. Does that mean is the yellow means that orange means they can't break, I guess?
So no more 3 teams can break.
Nope.
Just check those charges.
Who's that?
Schwabnel.
Oh, okay. Didn't you beat him? I know you lost. At Wake. Yeah, that's their 18.
The ones you beat.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Pull up your judges thing.
Yes, Buffalo's 3.
Which Buffalo one?
One with lost one.
Yeah, but which one?
The good one. The only good one.
Oh, really?
Robot lobsters.
Robot lobsters.
Yours are great, yes. And which of you is Alex?
The 2? Okay.
Okay, let's talk about this debate. Actually, before we talk about the debate, 2 main points. One is, I don't know how old you all are, but if at any point you have a question about the University of Michigan in general or debate, feel free to ask me after the round or contact me later. Second is the Detroit Urban Debate League is doing a fundraiser. If you're ever hungry during the tournament, Pizza House. If you go there and tell them you're eating for Detroit Urban Debate, 30% of your tab will go to the Detroit Urban Debate League. So keep it in mind when you get hungry later. Now let's talk about this debate. So this debate was actually kind of hard to judge just because I thought there was low risk on a lot of things in the debate. I think everyone was very good at extending their own arguments. Certainly very good at extending their own arguments. However, it's two ways. I think there are several points in this debate where everybody's kind of just like, I don't want to use the word tunnel vision, but tunnel vision on what they think is important, and it just kind of hurts all of your argument at large because you're not dealing with everything. I then just had to decide what has, of all the things that are kind of low risk, what has the highest. And I did think that I did indeed think it was the politics dissent, which outweighed. Therefore, I voted for the negative. More specifics for that, I'm going to go through like each of the main arguments that I think it came down to. The first thing I looked at was actually the warming flow. I think you have a risk of it, however, it is low. I think they are correct to say that emissions that China is going to produce is distinct from what aquaculture would be trying to solve. And there are certainly ways that your 1AC is built to answer this argument. However, you are not dealing with them. You make the argument about carbon sinks. I read that piece of evidence. It says that like chopping down trees or something with forestation causes carbon sinks. I don't understand how this applies to the affirmative. At least the only place I saw carbon sinks in the card. The modeling argument, you're framing it as they would have the same tech for aquaculture. What rather you should have to be doing is saying they would have the same tech and create the same aquaculture, and they would also then create more cooperative frameworks to solve for global warming, which would cut down China's emissions. You begin to do this, however, you do not do it all the way, and that is what's going to be needed to solve for this in order to solve this China emission argument. The second thing is the reason I still think that you did have some sort of weight on the warming flow was adaptation. However, this is I think the second way that you need to be answering this argument, which you have. However, you need more of. I have it as like a blip in the 2AR, which is why there's low risk of the warming flow. There needs to be much more on it. The disease turn, both of the turns, the disease turn, basically all the case turns, I felt didn't really influence my decision as much just because they were not impacted as well. While I certainly think there is a higher risk of the link, I do think that things like warming / hedge are probably going to outweigh them, specifically the resource war scenario. / I don't have really any disease or comparison in, while you do extend some sort of impact to it, I don't get the comparison that's needed in the 2NR. I think this is time that could be much better spent on the dissent.
Okay.
That will certainly just increase your chances of winning the dissent. Because hedge, I don't think you're dealing with the defense that you need to be dealing with here. While they are not going for it as well, I don't think you're dealing with it. It's easy to take this out. The card that
in the 2AR.
In the 2AR, in the entirety, like the card that they have read, I don't think is good. I think the analysis that they are giving is not enough to win it. However, the analysis you are giving in return to it is not enough. You need more, you need to make this more focused. I get a lot of stuff on solvency here, not enough on the impact work. And I guess I think that is a really good comment for the entirety of the case debate. Everybody has done some sort of solvency or some sort of like link to the turn in for the negative, or impact work. That is what needs to be focused on. Therefore, your argument about hedge solving the Middle East, I think there are two problems with it. One is the fact that I'm not very certain that you have like hedge impact. Secondly, even if hedge is able to create some sort of cooperative framework that solves for Israeli strikes, the card that you read, I don't think is able to grant you this. Again, I think there is a distinction between the Israeli strikes that they're talking about and the one line of the evidence that you have read that said Kissinger was once able to resolve some tension.
Did the 2NR get to
Israel.
that? Did the 2NR say that?
I will get to that. While the 2NR did not explicitly answer this, I think this just comes down to the fact that it's still a higher risk of the disad because I don't think that you have the hedge impact that you need.
Okay, so I thought their hedge impact in the context of decline would be gradual.
Sorry?
I thought the hedge impact was in the context of like decline would be gradual. Why does that take out the...
I understood it as decline, even A, probably wouldn't happen, and B, there isn't going to be a negative effect from it because hedge isn't able to really change anything.
Okay, so why wouldn't that solve this existing?
Because if hedge doesn't affect anything, then it's not going to affect Israeli conflict.
Oh, their argument was hedge doesn't solve it.
That's how I understood it in the 2AR. Which, rereading the card, I don't think that's what the argument is. However, this isn't an argument made by the 2AR. Or really the F anywhere. And I think if you just read their evidence and were like, look, this evidence isn't good, and then put hedge back on hedge, then you would be in a better place. I still think on the line by line, I guess I'll talk about the design now. I think that you have, this is where it was hardest to decide just based off of who was winning the risk of the disad. While I think you are in a very good place, you need more. I think this could be a problem with the focus. I think the 2AR has a lot of analysis on the case that isn't needed, that certainly could have gone to things like Obama has no PC and you need this to be, which I think they're just beating you on the analysis. And you have all of the evidence to do this. Which is why it was kind of frustrating for me making the decision because I was like, oh, you are correct. I think your evidence is better. I think your evidence does has something better because it postdates. However, I'm getting 3 lines explanations of things that need a lot more if you're going to win them. Okay. / just the comparison that you need. Anyways, and what I was going to say was that. Basically, yeah, I don't think the case is going to be able to resolve the disad, and even if it's not going to be able to, it's just based off of the way that impact comparison went down.
So should the 1AR spend more time on politics?
Yeah. Yes.
And
I think not only should you have spent more time on it, but I think you should have spent less time reading. I think you should have tried to read some more uniqueness evidence / link evidence versus the impact evidence. And I think what you could have cut down on was topicality. I feel like this affirmative is topical. I would have to read through the evidence more to really make that decision. / I would probably have more trouble making that decision just because I'm not in the ocean's research. However, I had trouble under I obviously get the T-case argument, but just the violation itself. That could just be a more perceptual thing because of all their Fed key stuff, which again is why I say I would have to read everything to really be sure. So for all I know, you are incredibly untopical, and I'm totally lying on my ass, and you should have spent more time there. However, the way I saw it was worth buying here.
Okay. Was the violation just not kind of explained clearly, or you just kind of were confused how the AF is not that?
I think the violation has to be explained more clearly.
Okay, how so?
The way that I understood it was that we would create this federal plan. I think you have to make more of a focus on what development